So somebody has their TV or something on. Can you turn that off? That is what I'm hearing. Television or radio or something.
Is that music? Because it may be my neighbor. Okay.
So we're going to talk about Simone's residency and getting a 20-minute version of her script that's clearer for a presentation. Cassie, do you have questions?
I'm really looking at, so I'm interested in figuring out, one, are we still, when we do the morning pages, is it still 5 pages or are we going back to the 3 pages once we finish module 5? So I wrote the, 5-page stories. What happens if they don't come out like stories? Like today, a rant came out, not a story. And,
All right, and that's your question, the morning pages. That's one question I'm going to deal with. I'm going to deal with the residents.
Okay.
And then Katie, what's your question?
Okay.
Well, it's kind of the same as Cassie's because, well, I'm working on the emotional chords in the north node, and so all my writing now is coming out more as random thoughts. I'm not getting any sort of cohesive writing from it. So I'm just getting ideas and stuff I want to develop, but nothing's really coming that's developed.
Right. Okay. Very good question. All right. Let's talk about your residency first. Because I do solo, but I've workshopped all my plays. And part of residencies, and here's Barbara. Part of residencies, hi Barbara, is you're doing them to get information out about the show. They're like a commercial for your show. Yes, they're for development, but mostly they're for theaters to get to know you and presenting venues and to understand what the show is about, okay? My first thought about solo shows is that people overcomplicate them always. Always, 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 always. That's my first thing. So I developed my play at several. I did a Classical Theater of Harlem. I did New York Stage and Film. I did the retreat with New York Theater Workshop. Then I did an in-house retreat there. And then, I went upstate to Vassar and all this stuff, right? The comment that I got over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because I was doing sections, presenting it as I worked on sections. So I would do a 20-minute presentational section, right? I had this 20-minute version of the show that I could do anywhere. Is when I first saw you just standing on the stage with a script and a music stand, it was like the best solo show I've ever seen. Whoopi Goldberg show, it's the best solo show I've ever seen. It's the best. Hey Barbara, join us visually. Because solo work at its best is storytelling, straight storytelling, and watching you transform. Because generally people hate solo plays. Like there had been a whole variety of them right before me that theaters were doing. And, a couple of artistic directors got really straight with me. They were like, yeah, I know this particular solo show that won all these awards was a hit, but my subscribers hated it. They were like, I want to see people in different environments or whatever, right? And I looked at that and I was like, well, how was Whoopi able to do that? Whoopi's very first show. Each monologue has a beginning, middle, and an end. It has a compelling beginning. The compelling beginning is always a problem. Her first one, I'm a drug addict and I can go to jail or I can get this plane ticket. Like it has immediacy, it has to be solved right now. So we're like, oh, well, you better. So we're obviously saying, let's get the plane ticket. Okay. So the little girl with the sheet, the sheet on her head. The problem is, and she states it in the beginning, my name is such and such. It's clear that, the way she's talking is she's a little black girl. And then she says, and I want long blonde hair. That's the problem. So, you know, every single mother, every single Black person in the audience is going, oh, she can't want to be a white child. Like everybody has a way to tap into that problem. It's the simplest story structure. What makes the person start talking? And in solo work, it needs to be this super heightened problem, okay? The stakes have to be really, really, really high because you're gonna play lots of different people with arguing points, okay? In a traditional show, you have a protagonist and an antagonist in a regular well-made play with multiple people acting in it, okay? You have an antagonist and a protagonist in every single scene. There's a problem. The antagonist is trying to stop the protagonist from doing something. The protagonist has to learn something new in order to solve the problem that the antagonist has created. So by the end, the protagonist has learned something because they solved a problem. The same exact thing has to happen in a solo show. Otherwise, we're like, am I watching modern dance? Is it Bill T. Jones? Is it Alvin Ailey? Or is it, why is there a video? Is it a Michael Moore documentary? I don't know. All that other stuff gets in the way of story. If there's no story, we're not going with you because you're one person and I just pay $75 for this ticket. This bitch better be funny. There better be a laugh a second, right? The best stand-up has story, beginning, middle, and an end. There's a problem, right? You look at on Sunset Strip, all of Richard Pryor's stuff, who's one of my major influences, is he starts with a problem. White people are crazy because they think Black people want to come and live in their neighborhood where we'll get killed. Like, like he sets up a problem and then he explains, let's play this problem. Okay, maybe I do go to that neighborhood. Let's see what happens, right? Or his grandmother was such a harsh motherfucker and then he becomes her. And you learn, and he was like, yeah, my grandma was like this and she did this and she did this. It's like, well, it's because she ran a whole house. And everybody's like, oh, your grandmother ran a whole house. No wonder she was so hard on you. He's like, and this is what I learned in the whole house, right? So he gives you these heightened problems. He plops you right in the middle of the problem immediately. Solo shows that don't do this, we don't care. Unless you have a gimmick. People have a gimmick, they're gonna burst into song. In which case, why didn't I just go see a musical? The story is the most important thing. What makes you start talking? And what is the problem? Get specific. You start talking because there's a huge problem. It's a dilemma, okay? And in the course of the first monologue or scene, you need to get some leverage towards solving that problem, right? Or you give us more details about that problem so it becomes more and more complicated. You're like, well, yeah, the little girl wanted blonde hair. But see, actually, she's really Black and poor. She can't even get a wig. All she could get was a t-shirt. And then nobody in the neighborhood believed that it was real. And she was like, I can't believe they don't believe that my t-shirt is my blonde hair, right? See how the problem gets more and more complicated. We overcomplicate solo shows and people hate them. People go to see a solo show for a couple of reasons. We go to see a solo show to hear the life story that we can identify with. They're like, there by the grace of God go I. Like, they're like, you did what? Oh, I feel better about my life already. Your mother was a psychopath? Oh my God, seriously? Wait a minute. And your daddy drank? And then he hit your mama? Oh, because your mama was drinking. Oh, Lord. Oh, we're like, I feel so much better about my life. But take me in. Take me in. Complicate the problems and complicate the characters. That's it with solo shows. You don't need no whistles. You don't need no bells. You don't need no special photography sliding. You actually don't need any of that if the person is a compelling storyteller and the narrative has a clear beginning, middle, and end. Okay? A clear inciting incident. And because you've done all this emotional chords and true nodes work, you understand each character's biggest fear, their major life lessons that they're put here to learn. You understand the subtext of each character, which is really important for solo work because people are always in solo work. The characters seem so big because they are completely driven by their subconscious that they never discuss with anybody. And in a solo show, it's like the characters are jumping off the page and saying, okay, I know in that last scene, I said I really wanted to go to that college, but really, I just want to stay here and live in my mama's house and never leave. Like, they tell the truth. It's why we stay in it, okay? So solo shows have a person with a huge problem. And the immediacy is you got an hour to resolve this problem, but it's a life problem, okay? So now you've got the constraints of time and you have stakes. And so it drives the protagonist to go to these different places, different characters, different situations to solve this overreaching problem. And it needs to be big like that in solo work. So a solo work is bigger than in a regular multi-person play, is because you're playing both people. So if I'm playing the protagonist and the antagonist, one person is always driving the scene, the other person is reacting. That's drama, right? If it's just you, then you have to push, receive, push back, receive, push back. You have to become two different people with two different motivations that are in opposition to each other. If that is not clean and clear, we check out of the solo show. We completely check out, right? That's why solo work has to be grounded in the clarity of the narrative. Nothing else matters. So before you, I mean, I worked with Justine on her solo show, and I worked with Juan Francisco Villa, and they had these ideas about what they wanted, and I was like, I don't want to hear no songs. I don't want to hear no slide. I don't want to see no slides. What is the story? What happened in your abuela's kitchen? And he was like, yeah, but then everything around, I was like, come back to abuela's kitchen. Sit down at the table and tell me what she said, and then tell me what you did. And then ultimately he was like, we never did any of the other elements that later became a part of the show. No sound effects, no, you don't need that. Because one, on a practical level, if you have a solo show, the way to make money off of a solo show is to not have all that shit. The way to make money off of a solo show is be able to walk in a room and start talking and do a show and people are excited. Spalding Gray just sat at a table. If you saw Mike Daisy's solo show at Town Hall about Trump, it was compelling. He just sat at a table. That's it. That's it. It has to happen in the story. Justine's solo show, The Iron Butterfly, now has singing and all these other things in it. I never worked on that. She's like, you don't want to see that? I was like, I want to see the lyrics to see if they're telling the same story. That's it. It's the narrative. It's the script. It's the script. Is it structurally sound? Are the characters well developed and complicated? Is the problem, the conflict in each scene clear? And is the conflict building as you go from scene to scene so that by the first act, we have a point of no return where the protagonist is going to proceed forward or fail? Structure, 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 structure. You're not in the writing class yet, Simone, so you don't know about the outline yet, which would also just complicate this. But I guess the long and short of it is, if you have a residency, focus on the words. Focus on making parts of the script stand alone with just the words. You can add the other shit later. And some you may want. I mean, when my solo show finally got to, you know, the stage, the director did want slides. Some people hated it, some people liked it. I didn't care, because I was about the story. I was about the story. Can you take me to this place? And I can take you to this place by stepping to the right, leaning on the kitchen counter. Listen, if you don't marry a white woman, you don't have to kill a white woman like OJ. You're in my grandmother's kitchen, right? Because she has a gesture. She has her voice comes from a certain place. It comes from being on the island in the heat, working in her garden. She never did too much, like, you know. And my mother's a jazz singer. And we're immediately in her kitchen because she has caftans and she sings jazz, right? Like, you're immediately taken to where that person is from because the clarity of who they are is in you and your storytelling. You don't need no shit like that. Usually when I see all them tricks and it's a pretty set and shit, I say, oh, she can't really act. So she want me to pay attention to all the, the merchant ivory background, right? But I'm not going to stay in it. And I go in and out of shows like that. I'm not going to stay in it if the narrative is not clear structurally. And when I say narrative, I mean character, subconscious motivations, ultimate fears and goals, life lesson this person is learning. And you have to organize that in a way that allows your audience in. So you have 20 minutes. I'm going to tell you what my 20 minutes was. It was the first 3 pages of my script. It's what you see on the YouTube video of my TED Talk. It's just the first monologue. It's one monologue. So that's my first recommendation. Pick one monologue, just one scene. I don't care if it's 8 minutes long. Pick one that's tightly written and working. No bells, no whistles, nothing. It's all dependent on how well you perform that story, how clear it is, how clear the writing is. So move all that other shit out of the way. Natasha's not here. She did the similar thing. Her thesis was what we were working on. She was like, I have to have an hour plan. I was like, no, you just need 5 good pages. And what I did learn is that I actually had to truncate those 5 good pages to make it a narrative that stood on its own, like its own little mini play. So I'm going to recommend a couple of things. I'm going to recommend that you go and watch Whoopi's show. The first one, not the second one, the first one. And I want you to take each one of her monologues, the old reason, I love that. And I want you to tell me about story structure. Look at it. What's the problem? What's the second problem? What's the second thing she does to get past that problem? What new problem does that create? Bop, bop, bop. Do a little outline. It should be, 5 points. Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each monologue. And just look at that structure. It's really clean and clear. Really clean and clear. 5 pages. And then have a coaching session with me. Does that answer all your questions? Residency.
So good.
Keep it clean and simple. No bells and whistles. And your director is like, interpretive dance. He's like, but that's not what we got right now. What's the story? It's 20 minutes. People got to be able to come and see it. You ain't gonna be able to have interpretive dance. And if you do, I'm like, what are you at the Classical Theater of Harlem doing? No. We don't need Indo-Mediterranean, African yoga, breathing, fire dance, which is such a Classical Theater of Harlem. I was like, where's the music from? It's Persian. Okay. But where's this outfit from? Well, that's Ghanaian cloth, but then the background is this gauzy cloth from India. I was like, well, what are we doing? It was like, and now we're gonna have yoga, but it's gonna be, trans something from Indonesia. I was like, okay, what's the story? I understand all those elements. I was like, so when the story is a hot mess and we don't know how the woman got from falling in love to killing him, so all you do is put some dance numbers in? No. And that's actually what it was. It was like, I love you. He's like, I'm done with you. And now we're going to have a dance. Okay, now we have a drummer. Okay, what's this guy? That guy has a lute. Where does the lute come from? It's a Scottish influence. I was like, oh my God, what is the story? It was very fun to look at. I was like, what's the story? And that's what residencies are looking for. What's the story? Okay. KISS. Morning pages. This is Barbara. Barbara just joined this scary community. Barbara, you want to introduce yourself?
Barbara's lost. Barbara's has to get the reins on this one together, but yes. Hi, all.
Barbara and I went to high school together. Shut up!
Okay, nice.
It's just the other day.
Yeah, just the other day. Somebody actually posted something like that today. I was like, that couldn't have been more than a decade, darling. I don't need you posting that shit. I was like, don't be commenting on my post with years and shit. Well, you want to go to reunion? No. I don't want to sit around with a bunch of old people. looking at their hairlines and how fat they are. I mean,
Luckily, the fashions are coming back, so we're starting to look timeless again.
I know.
They got the old pictures. They got the old pictures.
All I know is all the people that I'm in touch with are still cute. And the people I'm not in
Me
touch with
too.
are not cute. And you can't recognize them when they friend you on Facebook. Am I a horrible person? I'm being a horrible.
You know what? The ones that we're not in touch with anymore weren't cute back then either.
That's true. I just blocked someone.
Like,
Talk about that later.
you'll be like, block a bitch.
Well, I block a bitch, but
We come from a school where a lot of them need to be blocked.
But I was like, why is this Republican following me on Facebook? Like, he was like a militant Republican when we were in school, when we were in high school. I was afraid of him. I was like, he's like Aryan Nation. And sure
Who was
enough,
that?
a bunch of them. Let me stop the recording. Cassie's question about the morning pages.
Yes.
So your question, Cassie, is we move to 5 pages of the morning pages after 2 weeks instead of 3.
Yeah.
The goal is to keep writing more pages because eventually story will show up. It's like working out at the gym. The more you write, the easier it gets, the more fluid it becomes. And as you start working through the north nodes and you start writing, the reason that after you get to the nodes work, the reason that the writing turns into rants is because you are learning some very uncomfortable truths about yourself. As I said to Simone the other day, and she was going through her north nodes, and she was like, it says so many things about me, about my focus, and I feel bad about it. I was like, look on the bright side. My north node says that I controlled and murdered people in my past life. It's all relative. It's all relative. So you look at the north nodes, you read through that, and you go, okay, it said that I did this. I didn't do that. So when you come to the morning pages, you're mad about what you just read. Or you discover, oh, it's true, I let somebody totally take advantage of me. So you're mad at yourself. So you spend the morning pages fucking cussing out. But what it's doing is forcing you to face things about your psychology. And it's forcing you to think of stories from your past. It's getting all that shit out on the page, right? Lately, I've been reading my North Nodes every other day. Because I was like, my life is falling apart. Wait, this is your fault. Oh, fuck. Right? So the morning pages are really fucked up. However, story is better. What I'm writing is better. It's more succinct. It's more focused. Blogs that used to be 4 pages now are a paragraph. This is the idea. Fix it. It's clarifying my writing because my thinking process about the things that I wrestle with psychologically to learn in my life, the lessons that I'm fleshing out are ultimately what you're going to write about. It's ultimately what your characters are going to be experiencing and going through. That's why you want to tell their story, right? Because they have experienced something you are wrestling with. You can't write what you don't know. So adding the morning pages, adding pages, my hope is that eventually, the longer you do it, that you will write 15 pages and not even realize it was 15 pages. That's why the number 5 is there, right? I don't believe in goal-oriented writing. So if you need goals, I need to finish my script right now. That's why I'm taking your class. My class is not about that. My class is about using your most valuable tool, which is you. Your life's journey. And as a writer, you are an observer of that journey. And your particular experience of that journey is so specific that in specificity is where we find universality. It doesn't matter that I write about a little girl in Liberty City in the projects, right? In my show. After the show, every mother comes up to me. Every father comes up to me. I want a relationship like that with my daughter. It's because it's so specific. It doesn't matter. These are nice Jewish people from Miami Beach watching the show. It doesn't matter. I always ask people, where did you check in? They're like, oh, the relationship with the little girl. She's so clear and so right? The North Node forces you to get really specific about your life journey so that inherently you begin to write with that kind of specificity when you start writing stories. And if you stay with the morning pages, which then eventually go to recordings, and you just talk without an agenda, the story will emerge. The problem is that people come to my process going, I want to write about this. And I was like, if that's what you wanted to write about, you would have written about it 5 years ago. You're here with me because that has not been written. So it's time to throw away what you think you want to write and write the story that wants to be told. And the story that wants to be told is how you made it through and what you've learned along the way. That's what your emotional core is about. The true nodes, if you look at the lessons you're supposed to learn in your true nodes, you just underline them. Just underline them. Put them on a slip of paper, put them in your dream journal, and write about them. You'll be like, oh, the stories will pour out of you. They should be rants. You should be cussing and screaming. But by page 5 or 6, some story's gonna show up. Or you can turn on your recorder and start talking. It's to get you to write, and to get you to write a lot. I have Stephen King's On Writing on my reading list because I love what his crazy ass said. He's really crazy though. I can't read his books because I want to sleep at night. And just off the subject, for a moment, when I read Stephen King, I understand why white people are so afraid of Black people and everything else. It's just like, who sits around and thinks that kind of like
Pretty twisted.
who sits around? I was like, people sit around and think about this? I was like, it's very anxious. I was like, he's worried about the vagina coming out in a monster's mouth and swallowing him. I was like, this psychology is disturbing, but it's very telling about, I was like, whoa, these are your concerns, right? You go to Toni Morrison novel, Beloved, her concerns is my child gonna live or have to bash a child head up into a wall? It's very like, is my child gonna eat? Is my child not gonna eat? All right? It's like the psychologist, I'm gonna have to kill my husband because he's abusing my child. There's no monsters that need to come out of the closet. She just needs to kill him. The psychology is really interesting with what people concern themselves with and how they articulate it. It's the monsters come out. And I was like, oh, okay. One's not better than the other. They all end up in the same place, people killing each other. But the way that they're imagined is completely different. That's what you're getting at with the morning pages, right? I can't write characters that I don't know their souls. I can make them look like stick figures, but I can't write about their souls. I don't know what makes them work. I don't know people who profoundly need religion. I don't know how that works. I don't know people who follow the codes. And, you know, I'm never going to write a story about being at a historically Black college and pledging a Greek fraternity. I don't understand any of that. That's not, why would you do what? Okay, maybe I could go someplace where everybody looked just like me for like a year. But for me, that kind of sounds like being punished by Black people 24/7 for 4 years. And I'm like, It's like, oh, I have to fit in here because I'm Black. Whereas if I go someplace where everybody's different, I can just be me. I don't have to fit in. So I don't understand that story. I can't write stories like that. I don't understand why you would want to go there. That's not a part of my psychology. My psychology is about being who I am and that not being so revolutionary to everyone else, because my assumption is everybody is being exactly who they are all the time anyway, aren't they? Like, people are like, no. I said, what? Well, so why do you have a perm? Because that's what the women in my office wear. I said, but do you like it? No, I think it's ugly. Why are you wearing it? And it just wouldn't occur to me to like do what I'm supposed to do because other people are doing it. I can't write about that. That's what the North Node, that's what the personality test that you take is about. It's about understanding what your worldview is getting deeper into that and getting okay with it. There's a reason you feel such things. It's a reason you feel different. There's a reason you feel like you need to concentrate on 15 different things at the same time. The reason may be good, it may be bad, it may be you're trying to avoid something else, it may be whatever that thing is. You know all about it. But until you make that subconscious behavior conscious in the morning pages, you can't write about complicated people because you haven't learned your own complicated inner psychology, right? I always go back to Moon for the Misbegotten. So all of Anil's family were alcoholics, essentially. If you want to know why a person's broken dreams drive them to alcohol, you need to watch Moon for the Misbegotten. It must be 12 pages. There's a 12-page monologue of his brother completely drunk talking. But I understand everything about faded dreams, why he's an angry, drunk, young white man in the South. I get it. I get how he was thwarted. I get the societal restrictions of the South. I understand so much from that. I then understand the entire play and all the people around it because they're all trying to live up to these strictures. And it's because the experience in that monologue is so specific. O'Neill understands why every single person in his family drinks. He understands why they're depressed. He understands why they're bipolar. He understands it. He's gone in deep. He's clearly fleshed it out for himself, right? And so he puts his experience in the mouths of his characters very specifically. It's this period of time in this city, this economic bracket, this street. It's very specific. That's why I leave the theater understanding the human condition, because it's specific. It's specific, and it has made the subconscious conscious. That's why his writing is so compelling. It doesn't stay on the surface. That's what the morning pages are about. It's about your subconscious that you never articulate. Now, I don't want you to be like, become filterless like me, because that's not healthy. But the morning pages, got me to articulate all these things that I wasn't dealing with or saying or confronting. And because confronting them in real life, saying your subconscious thoughts out loud in real life could get you killed, right? So I would put it in the morning pages, and then later on, those things that I didn't want to say in real life, I can put them in the mouths of characters. That's what all great writers do. They put that outrageous shit. They put what needs to be said on the page that isn't being said. Or unless you're like Quentin Tarantino, in which everybody just works out the most fucked up, confused part of their subconscious with no resolution, clarity, or perspective. They're just like, I am this fucked up, I just want to drink for 14 days and die in Vegas. But here's what I'm going to do while I'm doing that. I'm going to get some swords. I'm going to have crazy sex. I'm going to shoot people. I was like, okay, I know you need to do that. But at the end, nobody ever goes, yeah, that's what I need to do, because they just work out all their subconscious stuff that they aren't supposed to do in real life. It's why people love it. They're like, I wish I could do that. It's why people love it. Stand up on a table in a diner and just like sing and go off and pull out a gun. And great characters working out their subconscious. Satisfaction comes in the writing, though, when they learn something from acting out. Mm-hmm. They learn something life-changing. That's why that scene with Samuel Jackson, I'm sure he ad-libbed it. And the white kid in the diner in Pulp Fiction, and he's like slapping him. He's like, stay up, motherfucker, stay up, motherfucker, stay up, motherfucker. At the end of the scene, Samuel Jackson is taking out his wallet, badass motherfucker is on it, He's made the white boy confront something he didn't want to. The white boy has changed by the end of the scene. He's like, oh gosh, I don't know why it was so hard to say that. I've been full of shit. I should be more like Sam. Well, maybe not. But because Sam's like, this is what's really happening, right? He killed her, right? So you deserve to die. So I'm gonna kill you now. Like we don't want that. But there's not enough of that. There's just people acting out, but not having like revelations that are a surprise to them. That's what the morning pages are. It's all that subconscious shit that you never talk about getting poured onto the page. So then you could be like, oh, this is already its own story. See how I solved that? Because a lot of the true node stuff that you're looking at, a lot of the personality profile stuff from the Myers-Briggs work, a lot of that stuff you've mastered. You've conquered those problems. If you look at the Myers-Briggs test, they tell you all these great things and they tell you what your challenges are. If you look at the challenges, you can start telling stories about how you have conquered each one of those problems. That story, or the ones that you haven't conquered. And you still are working that out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I did that. That was fucked up. Okay. Wow. Let me write the story of what I did. Okay. And then let me go back and see what happens if I make another choice. Which is, as you progress through the writing class, the Roshaman Technique. I think is that module 9? 7. The Roshaman Technique, where you tell the story, same story from 4 different people's points of view. It's an incredible exercise because it allows you to tell the story of what happened in your life. Like I tell the story of the teacher saying, I'm not from Africa, in my solo show. Then I told the same story from my father's perspective. Where the fuck else am I from? It just changes everything. He was like, I ain't from here. Then I told the story from the teacher's perspective. Then I told the story from contemporary Abram. My dad was out the box. And then you put that together and it's like this amazing, fun scene with a narrator from the present commenting on what happened in the past, right? And seeing it from this perspective. So the little kid left this situation feeling this way, or started to, and then the dad came in and said, that's not your shit. I'm gonna get that shit back to her. That's her gift. And this is the shit I'm gonna leave you with, right? When you write from those different perspectives, you solve a life lesson problem. There's a lesson that you learned. Don't let anybody ever, for me, it was don't let anybody ever tell you you don't know what you know to be true. So the Roshaman technique is really powerful that way. And some people are like, well, there was no resolution. Guess what? In the writing class, restarting up in September, I'm actually having people do that life story, tell me that story. Now I want you to rewrite it in what you would have said. And they're like, yeah! They look at the chords and they're like, yeah, I never speak my truth. And then I leave feeling like shit. Yes. So can you write that same scene from your perspective, knowing that something completely different happens? And then you put the two together and you create a scene. Yeah. Conflict. So the short of it is that the morning pages are where your stories begin. They may not finish, but it's where they begin. So think of it as writing. And the reason I brought up Stephen King, I'm circling back, in his book on writing, he goes into a room every day for 6 hours, and he does not leave that room. It doesn't have any distractions. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no nothing. I think he said there's one window. His family leaves lunch on a tray outside the door. He doesn't talk to anybody. He stays in there and he writes. And if nothing comes, he goes, fuck this shit. Fuck it. I was like, oh, he's like, but that's how I finish a novel. I'm going to stay on the page, even if nothing comes. And he's like, and there have been days where I sat there for 6 hours and nothing came. So that was the one lesson, stay on the page, that I learned from there. And the second lesson was when you skip a day, it takes you half of the next day to remember where you left off. You probably have to go back and read everything that you wrote 2 days ago, right? Don't skip a day. Even if nothing happens in the writing, don't skip a day. so that you stay in the stream of consciousness of the story. When you go a long time without reading it, it's like when I've developed plays and residencies and people are like, I'm just going to work on this section. I was like, no, after a reading, I get a rewrite. I rewrite the whole play. I start at the beginning, take the notes. I rewrite the whole play because then I'm in the flow of the story. I'm in the world. I'm in that timeline. I'm in my characters' heads. I'm present in it. Yeah. If you skip a day, you get all fucked up. Yes.
So I understand what you say about don't skip a day, but are you saying that the way that the morning pages unfold is like a larger narrative, is a narrative of a larger story? Does it matter about the sequence?
No. The morning pages are you learning how to stay on the page and write. That's it. You don't have to figure out the story. You just have to stay on the page. It's the most difficult thing. Nobody wants to do it. Stay on the page. Because every novel, every play, every screenplay, people wrote 500 pages to get a good 100 pages.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you're flushing out your subconscious. You're vomiting on the page so you can make room for story. It's writing every day. No agenda. I know people hate it. They're like, but I'm ready to write a story. I bet you've already written one in there. So you do the morning pages and then you do a lesson from the modules. Your morning pages affect, do a little test. Do one of the modules before you do morning pages and see what happens. Then the next day, do the morning pages first and then do the homework for the module and see which one is deeper. I think that the morning pages bring you into the creative space. I think the morning pages get rid of the self-consciousness because nobody else is ever going to see them. I think the morning pages allow you to beat up on yourself the way you want to so that you can get to work now that you've finished doing that bullshit. The morning pages also get rid of monkey brain and the inner critic and all that bullshit. The morning pages are completely and absolutely all about you and no one else. And women need a lot of practice with that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Barbara,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you sort out the issue with the you're doing your chart?
No, I'm still trying to get my time, but I did what you said, the general thing, and so I am Taurus and Scorpio.
For what?
For the first module, which is the North Node, my North Node is Taurus, and the opposite is Scorpio.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's
So
why
now I'm going to figure out what that means.
that's why you're attracted to me. My North Node is in Taurus too. So you murdered people in your last life too. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm close to murdering people in this one too. So we'll see how that goes.
We have the same North Node. I'm like, meanwhile, Simone is like, I can't focus on anything. I was like, at least you ain't killing nobody. Just organize your paper.
Last night, I was up until 6 in the morning. I almost killed somebody last night, but no.
These heavy personalities. Yes. So, any other questions? Katie, you still have questions?
Oh yeah. No, I mean you answered my questions with talking about that. My question was pretty much the same as Cassie's.
Okay.
With the.
I have a question.
I know you do.
And the question is about module 5, the emotional chords, because it says make a list of the top 10 recurring emotional chords. And the one I wrote down was the prodigal daughter. But I'm not sure if the prodigal daughter is an emotional chord or a theme.
It can be a theme.
So
It can be,
Right.
you don't have to have the exact perfect language. But
Okay.
listing what you know to be true at this point is the first step towards getting the full language. So right now it's what keeps coming up in the pages. What keeps coming up in the pages, my morning pages, is very similar to what came up in my True Node. What's similar in my morning pages, my True Node, my personality chart, and the stories that I've told. What is the common thread? That's all.
Yes.
You don't have to get it right. You don't
Yeah.
have to get it perfect. But once you start writing down what the threads are and you put that information together, it's like doing the first 4 modules and then doing a summation of what you learned from them. It starts to make the next step clearer and clearer and clearer. So
Yeah.
don't get it right, get it true.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. It's like the same thing I've been doing my whole life, or writing about my whole life. It's what these, it's the things that I need to heal. But this work makes it clearer to me. So it's not just like it's something happening to me. Like now with this work, I can like sort of objectively look at it and go, it's happening, and put it in a story, as opposed to just like, life, you know.
Awesome.
So it's interesting to be able to do that.
Awesome. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts, comments?
Where are you getting that you were a killer in your past life? How did you figure that out?
Just based on some things that I do in my life now. I feel I'm done telling my business. Mostly it says violent things happen to me in a previous life or in my ancestral memory, right? So if some violent shit happened to somebody in your family that you're close to, you have part of that ancestral memory. Mm-hmm. They helped raise you. So their fears, they embedded in you their fears, right? So as I looked at some of those patterns of behavior, I realized that some of the things I do in my own life are a response to that. So because there was violence, my response are equally violent. Like when I make a decision about something, the stakes are always much higher than what actually may be happening, right? Because I'm accustomed to, oh my God, if the electricity, so if somebody doesn't have any money, the electricity might be cut off. I'm accustomed to electricity being cut off and then somebody breaking in the house and raping and killing. So if we have a blackout in New York, my character might actually just run out of the house screaming and go buy a gun when it's just a blackout. And it's gonna come on in a couple of hours. But my past life experiences, when the electricity goes out, bad shit happens. So that a lot of the choices I make about communicating in real life come from that violence. Some of which happen to other people in my family, some of it is shared experiences, some of it is some of my childhood experiences, but I noticed the thread not just with me, but with my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. I see it in my other family. I see the same behavior being repeated. So I feel like it's in response. I feel like much of the way that I tackle things and solve problems comes out of the response to that violence. So I'm always responding to that violence when that's actually not what's happening here in real life. So I was a good actor. So I was like, yeah, there's some bad things happening. The people are like, you're always like, you come in and destroy. It's like we had a little spat and then you dropped an atomic bomb. It's never, like my response is never, oh, that's a little problem. It's like, no, I must crush it. And then you come in and you crush it. And you're like, dude, it was really not that deep. I was like, oh, okay. So if I go to church with you that doesn't mean that I'm joining a cult. No, we're just going to church. Oh, okay. My past life experience is if you go to church, you have to join that church, and it's a cult, and they tell you what to do all the time. Same life experience, really heightened. Like, that was my association. Church is cult. And then I had to be like, okay, that's past life experience. Church may not be cult, but I'm still responding in church like it is. So there's violence in my emotional responses that I'm learning to deal with. So murdering somebody, there's lots of ways to murder somebody. I call it dropping the darkness. An inherited thing in my family that people know how to do, especially the women. They know how to walk into a room and drop the darkness. And all of a sudden, the molecules in the air change. Everybody's feeling anxious and depressed. And now she's in control. I call it dropping the darkness. I'm very aware of it. Very aware of it. On the other side of that, brilliant storytellers that can captivate the whole room. That's why when I look at stand-up comics who are really good, I was like, ooh, they got a lot of self-contempt. That's why they became stand-up comics, because they know how to change the energy in the room. Mm-hmm. That's a form of violence. And when I did it, particularly in college, I did it a lot. It hurt and destroyed people. I consider that a murder. When you know you have this overwhelming thing about your personality that makes you feel powerful over other people and pushes them away, that's a form of violence to me. That's a form of murdering. And, you know, those people come back later and tell you, you know, you did this in my life. And it was like, a lot of people tell me, oh, you did this and it changed my life. There's a whole other bunch of people who are like, I never got over that. And I was like, dude, grow up. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I was a little harsh. I didn't mean to throw you in the trash can. I just meant to push you. I was a little terror. I was a terror. And always the smallest person out of everyone. Like the smallest person. All the women in my family are little tiny people who terrorize. They terrorize. You do not fuck with them. They level the playing field as soon as they walk in the room. That's what I mean by murder. That's a worse kind of death when you do that to people. Your words. So yes, I'm very aware of that, and I write about characters wrestling with that, because to not be aware that you do that is fucked up. So that's what I say. Emotional violence. And now you're paying a murderer to teach you to write. Are there any other questions? Barbara, we have the same node, so that's not a surprise.
Now I'm like, shit.
It's not a surprise to me.
My emotional violence is silence.
Yes.
Like I will shut down and walk away before I will dig in and work it through.
You were very scary in high school.
Was I? Yes. You're not the first person to tell me that, but I get surprised by it. Why was I scary?
Nobody. First of all, you were like a Valkyrie. You were like this tall, blonde woman with a Sophia Loren body and totally not aware of it. And poor boys were like, you know, leaving the room to take care of themselves every time you walk by. You're like, what's wrong with him? Why is he
bullshit?
First of all, this huge sensual in your body energy. And you would
really?
Yes, and you would get silent when you walk. And so you're bigger than all of us, first of all.
Yeah.
You're like
physically, yeah.
You're like blonde Sophia Loren. And you're like looking down on all the minions. What's your problem? And you're like, I feel so small today. I think I should be hostile with you because I feel small next to you. Yes. You were you were clear, and you would be like, I'm not going to bother to argue with, that little pettiness you're doing right now. And then when you would speak, it would be like on the money. Be like, oh, that's sort of petty. Really? Oh my God. You were like razor sharp clear. You're like, I have dealt with so much bullshit in my life. This little shit you're doing.
That's true.
I have gone through the valley, baby. Yeah, that's how I was like, she's scary. Like, I'm scary. Clear.
That's funny because you're not the first person to say that. I lost, but you remember Mark Dacey?
Unfortunately, yes.
I'm sorry. Man has an envelope full of $2 bills. What kind of personality has an envelope from the bank filled with $2 bills? What is that about?
He's probably Jamaican and preparing for the apocalypse and buries things in his backyard and then has various denominations of money and gold hidden behind a 1972 TV in his kitchen that doesn't work. And everybody's like, why don't you get rid of that? Because the apocalypse is going to come at any time and he wants to be prepared. So he has money in various denominations that are going to become rare that he can trade for goods and supplies. Notice I said this to you with a straight face because it's true. That's why he has an envelope of $2 bills, because they're going to become valuable. Because haven't you already seen we're running out of coins? Okay, so America is about to fall apart. West Indian people are always prepared. There's extra killed animals in the frozen freezer in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
The world coming to an end is standard, because the world is always coming to an end, particularly in Jamaican culture. Bahamian culture is like, well, it's going to get bad, but Jamaicans, it's like, it's going to be over. Okay? It's going to be over.
Pretty much.
And everybody's going to blame me. So let me just get stocked up and prepared, get my machete, get my guns, have a little thing in the backyard where we can go hang out, where they put a bunker, when they go burn down the buildings, okay, and the earthquake comes, and then global warming is going to hit a heat wave. I already got a well that I'm like irrigating so I can still well from other, but listen, because Jamaicans, it's always the worst thing that could happen ever. it's the worst. It's the worst. So you're preparing against the worst. And $2 bills are going to be rarer than anything else. That and gold. And if he gets all the $2 bills, they didn't make that many. He could be a rich, rich, rich man.
Yes.
I'm telling you about
$2 millionaire.
Yeah, it's a way of thinking. I have family with things buried next to the dead husbands and wives. Like in my Caribbean family, my grandfather lived on the family land and everybody was buried behind the house. They got little tombstones and stuff. I was like, the garden is out there too. I'm kind of feeling a way about that. I looked at them and they were like, why are you such a little white girl? I was like, this is in Nassau. They're like, why are you such a little white girl? I was like, our great aunt is out there and they were eating like sweet potato and stuff from there. And they were like, she nourished the land. but okay. It's dark. I used to go out there and play on a tombstone and stuff. I was like, this is very dark. It's very dark. I was like, in many ways, Caribbean people, if you go home, live the same way they did when they were in slavery. Still got outdoor kitchen, still got a well, still bury people on their land, because they're like, well, we couldn't bury Indian and brown and Conky people in the white graveyard, so we buried them in the backyard. I was like, but we can be in the white graveyard now. Oh my God, Daddy was like, well, why don't you be there with them? I was like, how are we fine back here? Why you want to be there with them? I was like, because slavery is over. What I got to do with that? You're like, it's over. You don't need to kill the pig and put him in the ground for 3 days to get tender and smoking. We can go to the grocery store. It's just another, like right now, I talked to my West Indian family. They're just stocking up on goods and sending things to people. My aunt sent a box of canned vegetables to my father. There are 50 cans of vegetables, just in case. I was like, how did they get here? So-and-so was taking a day cruise from Nassau. So I sent it by her in a suitcase.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Things are going to Cuba. You know, you'd be at home. I was like, this grouper is really good. Where's it from? Your uncle brought it in from Havana today. But nobody can go to Havana. He brought it in from Havana today on the boat. He been going to the boat. He's like, it's around down the road. I was like, but you're not supposed to go to Cuba. They don't stop. Look, listen. It got done. It's third world. They're like,
Yep.
My dad was like, you know, they got a cure for lung cancer in Cuba. He's like, yeah. He's like, so we're going to get some of them syringes, you know, if something go wrong. I was like, how you going to get it out of Cuba? You go to Cuba? Man, look, they give you the shot. He's like, but that's it. They got Zoom. They can talk you through it. I was like, oh my God. I was like, you can't take illegal drugs out of the country. And people are like, that's how you got the Klonopin from Mexico. Why you can't get the cure for lung cancer from Cuba? I need to get off of here.